Thank you so much, everyone. Welcome back. Our attention will now shift to what happened in the conduct of the Anambra governorship election, which held on the 6th of November 2021. The INEC has shown interest in improving in the use of technology for our elections. It was first the card reader machine and now the bimodal accreditation system, the BVAS. The intention is to ensure that elections are not compromised, but in Anambra State, was that agenda effectively executed? All right, we even have a wider, a more robust panel right now, larger than we had in the last hour. I have joining me now on the panel Senator Victor Ume, former national chairman of the All Progressives Grand Alliance, ABGA, and with him is Mr. Osita Chidoka, a former aviation minister and a chieftain of the People's Democratic Party. Mr. NOB is still with us in the panel. And here also, Mr. Festus Okoye, whom I've detained right beside me. And from Lagos virtually is Mr. Benga Sheson, an information technology expert. I told you, robust conversation just began. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Let me begin. Some of you who monitored the event from the political or politicians' point of view. Let me begin with you, Mr. Chidoka. Did the BVAS work?
Yes, the BVAS worked. The Anambra election was particularly a good watermark for INEC because there were, it only goes to show what transpired in 2019, the capabilities that INEC had, and which many people, I remain the bellwether child of that 2019 election, whether INEC had such capabilities or not.
Or whether there was a server
or no server. But
are you still convinced there is a server?
I am happy that INEC uploaded all his results on the server. But more important is the fact that before the Anambra election, INEC brought out an agent upload platform. Parties were required to upload their agent. So if two parties were to upload the same person as agents, the system rejected it. So before the election, we saw the number of agents that each party had uploaded at the polling unit level, at the ward level, at the local government level, and at the state level. So you're supposed to have 1, you're supposed to have 21, you're supposed to have 326, and then you're supposed to have 5,000 plus for the polling unit. So some parties got all, and some parties did not get all. So that automatically begins to show you how the election will go. Because that transparency, that technology utilization was a very good step in what INEC is doing. Now, for the BVAS itself, INEC didn't, the BVAS is just, I went to vote, my fingerprints could not be read, they did the facial match, they matched immediately, and I voted. It was seamless for me. Many people complained about the slowness and about the issues around it, and my take was, this is what happens, when you deploy a technology without enough time for the change management system. And don't forget, we use youth corpers every time, so they are fresh, they're new. So they need to be hired much earlier than they were hired. They need to get familiar with the equipment much earlier. But the real issue in Anambra election is that it has pointed out two things, and which is what the INEC ESCO has done. By improving the transparency of elections, INEC has already removed the influence of INEC officials on the election. So instead of voting money for INEC people because they will give you result sheets or they will take it from the polling unit for you and write at the ward level, you spend the money now on voters because once it is done, it is done. So INEC is no more, INEC officials are no more as important as it used to be. So all those that were planning rigging in Anambra who relied on writing the results just found out there were no results to be written because the BVAS was telling his own story. And whatever you are doing with the agents was a waste of your time. The second most important fact for me in the election was that the BVAS handed over power to the people. So that is the major part of the reforms of elections in Nigeria, giving the power back to the people. So police did not matter. So if you waste all your money giving to police, you are wasting your time. Army did not matter because if they come and block off registration areas, the results were already online before we got to the registration areas. So there was no time to saying, oh, come back, chase everybody out and write the result. So this is a major improvement. And I must give kudos to INEC that their server is actually working.
Senator, your candidate in that election spent almost 6 hours before he could vote. For you, did the BVAS work?
Of course, yes. The BVAS worked, but not without glitches. There were difficulties in the beginning, partially because of what he pointed out. The people who were given the responsibility to operate the machine as presiding officers didn't know very much what to do when they ran into problem. What I discovered in the election was that the BVAS had a network or signal issue. If the location where the BVAS machine is has very weak signal, every effort you make to operate it will fail until some people tried to support the signal in the BVAS with personal hotspots. And you see the BVAS pick up immediately. So I traced the fault to weak signal network that was used to configure the BVAS machine. Aside from that, like my brother said, somebody has described the BVAS machine as a vaccine against rigging, anti-election rigging vaccine. But it's not just because of the BVAS, it's because of the INEC guideline as well that insisted unless the BVAS machine captures or recognizes your fingerprint or your face, that you will not vote. I think that is what saved the election. When we're using card readers, you come with your PVC. If the machine, if you come with a PVC, the smart card reader, if it fails to read your card, you have the opportunity of being given an incident form where you write your name, they take your card details, then check on the paper register. If your name is there, they will tick it. You fill the incident form and go ahead to vote. But this time around, there was no incident form. No form of accreditation was allowed except the BVAS machine recognizes you. That, to a large extent, saved the election. Because if INEC had introduced incident form again, if the BVAS machine fails to recognize you facially and with or your fingerprint, you go for form. They would have used that to manipulate the process. Anybody you brought and BVAS fails to recognize, you get an incident form, you go and vote, and the whole thing will go back to the old system. So the strict enforcement of the guideline that no incident form made it possible for only those captured or recognized by the BVAS machine were allowed to vote. It doesn't matter how many you came and failed to be recognized. So it was a beautiful exercise, and I believe that subsequently, if INEC tries to use the network providers that have very strong signals nationwide, the BVAS will be wonderful.
All right.
Yes. So
there is, before I bring in the audience members and the IT expert, let me allow Ms. Obi to weigh in. We had several conversations. You were in our studio in Anambra State, and we spoke about some of the problems. What are those things that you identified as the problems that bedeviled the BVAS at the time?
I think one of the first is the fact that we were in conversation with INEC headquarters about the voters' card, the PVCs, because after the continuous voter registration for Anambra, of course, it's shut down by law, by the provisions of the law that says you have to stop 60 days to the time. They were able to observe that. But the PVCs did not get to the people on time. And we were following up with INEC. We followed up with of course, our comrade Festus.
A former comrade.
No, he's not a former comrade. We still hold him responsible, you know.
We still
hold you responsible.
He's a former comrade, still a comrade.
He's still a comrade.
So we had followed up, and we were following up because the people in Anambra said they have not gotten their voters card. And we followed up. The voters card did not get there until Tuesday. You know, the distribution started on Tuesday, and by Thursday evening, they had to stop so that they can transfer sensitive materials. You know, so that was a major concern for us. And going forward on that is that the severe, you know, as it's going on now, we need to move fast to ensure that by the end of next year, everybody have their cards and not wait until the last minute before they start distribution and all. You know, that was one. The BVAS not working, we tried to follow up with INEC, and I think that is one thing, you know, panelists here has pointed out already, that INEC really brought out transparency, you know, and accountability in terms of telling us exactly what is going on, because when the BVAS were not working, some of the BVAS that were not working, we raised it up, you know, with the European Union, you know, the team, they were in the field, and they showed us, it's like, situation room, what are you doing about this? This is not working. And we're able to, we had a free line to INEC officials, and we're able to talk to them. They were quickly able to call on their technical officers to rectify a lot of them. And we were following up when the governor-elect, Soludo, was in a polling station and was not able to. We raised that, and he actually told us that INEC technical staff were on ground already, you know, to rectify. And that was the report we were getting from.
It took about 5 hours to do.
It took quite some time. Some of it is
perhaps the longest I've seen any IT gadget being fixed.
Sheung, we were not oblivion of the problem that was happening on ground. Logistics were a major issue. We knew about so many people who down tooled in the morning. Even the officers who were supposed to be, you know, represent, who were the polling officers, you know, the youth corpers, many of them down tooled in the morning. And the transport officers, we knew what happened that morning, that many of them did not come to work. Yeah. And again, even for us as civil society organizations, there were so many people we mobilized. They would tell you we're not going out. Because that election was very, very peaceful. But you can almost touch that negative silence.
The tension.
The tension, you know, so a lot of people did not want to come out. I think in the morning of that day, many of us did not know that whether we were going to deploy, at least those who came from outside, whether they should go out at all. But you from Channel, you know, early in the morning already, we saw you showing that you are at the polling station already. Yeah, and a lot of people, it gave a lot of people hope. The civil society organizations, it was situation room. We were thinking on our feet. What can we do to encourage people to come out to vote? We had to start placing emergency, you know, jingles. We started placing emergency jingles on all the television. We went to, you know, Anambra State Broadcasting Corporation. We had a multitude that were able to, at least our funder allowed us, you know, quick actions. And a lot of people, we got the thing translated into Igbo, and they started, you know, publicizing. Early in the morning, you were not seeing so many people. But as people were gaining confidence, you know, a lot of people...
It looked like they were waiting to see people come out.
They were waiting to see if this was real or not.
Yeah, let me bring in, because Mr. Okoye has a lot of questions to answer, but I want him to sink in all of the...
Mind you, as a lawyer, I'm the one who is supposed to ask the questions.
So I'll allow everybody to throw in their questions and their queries on this issue. Then I'll allow Mr. Okoye to respond. Of course, I'll bring it to the members of the audience. But let me bring in Benga Shason, who is an IT expert. From 2011, I think Benga and some of his friends had created a platform to mobilize people to go out and where people can report situation in elections. But Benga, it's good to see you. What do you make of the situation that happened in Anambra? That's not the first time INEC deployed the BVAS. It did in a smaller election, but it was a big stage for the BVAS. It did the job, but there were hitches. What do you think happened?
So thanks, Sheryl. It's good to see you again, too. I think that one of the things that we have to admit when it comes to technology being deployed in any process is that if something goes wrong, usually it is not the technology. It can be any of 5 things or more. As has been mentioned earlier, it could be training in terms of adequate woman power or manpower and done well in advance, which is why, I mean, I know that, the, bimodal system was tested, before it was used in Anambra, and now we have Ekiti, we have Osun, and then we're going towards 2023. So this is the time to begin to do testing. Training is being done continuously. As was said earlier, the structure of INEC, woman power, manpower, that means that people have to change from time to time. That has to be factored in so that if new people are coming in, you have to plug them into the system immediately for them to understand, the system. Testing is being done, of course, if there is any process, if not just major elections, if there's any process. And I think that this is a time that INEC can also take advantage of making sure that if there is a chance to test the system in between elections, we do focus groups and all of that for products, INEC can do the same. The other is in terms of redundancy. So there's training, there's testing, but there's redundancy. I've heard people complain about network and some devices not working and things like that. This is where redundancy comes in, where you check. INEC, I believe, has a map of all the polling units across Nigeria, and working with regulator, the NCC, and some other stakeholders, and even through their own network, they can map the structure of networks, of the strength of networks across all those locations in advance. Of course, you can begin to do that now if it's not already done. The other issue is in terms of monitoring during the process. If monitoring is not effective during the process and there is no live support, you will have a scenario where someone is trying to get accreditation and then there is a problem and you have so many hours. Within that period of time, if proper monitoring is done, you've done training, you've done testing, you've beaten redundancy, then you shouldn't have a problem, because you're monitoring. You can't have 100% from day one. There is no system that is 100% from day one. You test, improve. But more important than even all of this training, testing, redundancy, and monitoring is evaluation. It will be great to hear from INEC right now. Are you crunching the numbers? Are you looking at the data? Are you considering what went wrong? And it's very easy when people say it worked or it didn't work, there were problems or there were no problems. But I think INEC needs to close its ears to either it worked or not, take all of that feedback, but go to your numbers and check where it did not work. What exactly did not work? Was it a device problem? Was it a network problem? Was it a human problem? Because the truth is that this system and every form of technology that we introduce into the system is one step away from human intervention. Rigging is simply human intervention supported by power and additional resources. So the more we remove human intervention, the more we're able to make sure that every form of interference by politicians, by INEC officials, or by any other human agent is removed. So I'm glad that we're here having a conversation.
Quick one, Benga, and I like, we had a conversation around electronic voting. You are an IT expert, so I want to ask you 2 straight questions, quick one. The first is, with the internet penetration in Nigeria, Wilson Manji said that a few countries have done online voting where you can vote and instantly on the internet, you get an instant result of your vote. With internet penetration in Nigeria, are we ripe for electronic online internet voting?
The answer will depend on how we define online voting or internet voting or e-voting. If you say internet or online, you're talking about people that have connection to the internet, and that's less than 50% of Nigerians. So if we're going to combine that with other forms of voting, it's okay. But when we say e-voting, it doesn't have to be internet. Something as simple as SMS, which covers all of Nigeria, by the way, 100%, can be electronic voting. The problem at times is that when we say electronic, people want to talk about the sexy, the most expensive, the one that are brought to you by contractors. No. What we need here is appropriate technology. If in Akure, or Gusau, you are using SMS. If in Lagos or in Kano, you are using internet, you can, complement each of these things. As long as electronic is concerned, it does not have to be online.
Another question I'd like to take up with you is the issue of the BVAS. If you had to advise INEC from the complaints that we saw on the field, what would you be telling them if they're going into Ekiti and Osun State, the biggest lesson and how to fix it?
I think the biggest lesson is the fact that, as you heard, from the political actors, everyone now knows that you can't be, a political actor and complain that somebody has influence to the BVAS system. That's not true. Technology is a leveler. ABGA, PDP, APC, any other name you have the same level of access, because what we believe is that we have an independent National Electoral Commission. And I think what we've seen in Anambra, and I believe we will see in Ekiti and Osun and other locations towards 2023, is that as we continue, INEC itself will enjoy the independence. Because to be honest, when you deploy technology tools, you feel less pressure. So I would say that one major lesson INEC should learn from this is, in the areas where failure has happened, please don't defend yourself as if nothing should go wrong. It's okay. If you have 70% today, as long as you are growing towards 100%, it's fine. Please don't defend yourself. Just say, thank you, we will look at it and fix it. That's one. Don't give excuses, fix it. The second is that where it has worked, as we love to say, bottle it and repeat it. Where it has worked, where it has been flawless, where it has had no itch at all, ask yourself what happened there. The human factor, the training factor, the redundancy factor, the monitoring factor, the evaluation factor. Repeat the same thing as you continue in elections. But I think even more importantly is that INEC needs to begin to sensitize citizens on radio, on TV, across networks, that listen, this is the future of elections. And this is how we remove, that disconnect between voting and outcome. Right now, voting and outcome can align if we begin to deploy technology tools that remove the elements of human intervention that lead to rigging. So those are the things that INEC can do as we continue.
What we mean, Gwenga, because I'll come back to you in a moment. Okay, quickly, yeah.
21 million people who voted without complete accreditation. Of the 31.7 million people that came out were accredited to vote, 21 million had partial accreditation or no accreditation using the card reader. So what happened with the BVAS is a tremendous improvement by changing the rules that this is compulsory. Now, what the implication of that, as he was pointing out, is lessons learned and improvement. One of the critical lessons learned is that the network failure and the delays in INEC, I don't like a situation where we have this secrecy around government operation. Somebody should pay a price for it. The IT department of INEC should hands up and tell us what transpired. You didn't measure well or you didn't train the officers. Somebody needs to carry the can. It just has to happen in this country. We should stop accepting nonsense. If something goes wrong, somebody pays a price for it. INEC should not be secretive about it. INEC should not be apologetic. Somebody is being paid for it. You told us this will work like this. It didn't work like that. What happened? Let's have a review. And let the political parties understand from the review, this is what actually happened, so that confidence is built in that process. All right.
Let me go to the audience in a moment. Mr. Okoye, you are thinking in them. You are thinking those things.
I'm listening.
Yes,
He's listening, yes.
Let me bring Bukola Idowu quickly. Let me go to, just a moment. Okay. Let me go to the audience members. Bukola Idowu, your intervention quickly.
Thank you very much. I think Gbenga Sheson was asking about what actually happened, either human or technology. I think it's a combination of human and also environment, because environmental factors also affected that BVAS. Most people did not know, because in some cases, you find difficulty in capturing the people because of inadequacy of lighting, in some polling units. So we have to also look at that. However, I think one of the lessons we need to also look at is that sizable number of people were disenfranchised in Anambra because of that BVAS that was not working. Don't forget, the election in Anambra was conducted in a very tense environment. So some people just want to get to the polling unit, cast my vote and get back home. And then when you get there and you are being delayed, just imagine where ABGA candidate was not really in quote, a special polling unit where you have that candidate. So which means a lot of people will have gone home. And which means a lot of people also went home in that particular. So lesson learned now is that we have to hit the ground running in Ekiti and Osun. However, I think the issue here is this, and I like the way former minister and the senator talked about the power is being taken now away from the INEC officials and to the technology and to the people. Now, what does that suggest? And what should we need to build on is that do INEC need to begin to look at regular ad hoc staff trained that can be used over and over and over and over? Which means, what am I trying to say is that now the people that will have worked in Ekiti and Osun can be retained to work in 2023. For instance, the people that have worked in Anambra can also work in 2023. Now, instead of the corpus changing, and so and that is where we now have the issue of training. Now, I don't think, looking at what happened in Anambra, there are issues around training. There are issues around people even coming out, having enough ad hoc staff. So some people were even deployed with half training. So to handle BVAS might be a bit difficult. So we need to begin to look into that, a pool of ad hoc staff that will have been using this thing over and over that can always be called upon.
I have a pen, Mr. Okoye. Should you want to note some of those things? Because these are very expensive advice that is coming to INEC, but we need to break the conversation. I know there are comments coming from both sides of the divide, but we take a break. And when we return, the lessons on the BVAS and more. Join us again. We'll be back. Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us on this special elections town hall. Let's get more reactions from the members of the audience. Madam Odi.
Okay, my name is Comrade Odi, Executive Director, Imaizazu Center for Good Governance and Accountability. I just want to say that when we discuss Anambra State governorship election of 6th November, that we should look at it from a context. Building up what happened. Even at the point, when we situation room members got Anambra on Wednesday, and the election is supposed to hold on Saturday. We interviewed so many people, even the drivers were using, the one can just stop. They say nobody is coming out. And that's when we came with the idea of the jingles. You can look at it and compare it with another election. This is different. One. And also want to address the issue of network. It wasn't about network. It wasn't about network.
The BVAS.
The BVAS was not about network.
What was it about?
When many places we visited, you will see that it's either the lightning like because when our situation members advise the INEC staff come out like this, and it start working. And also think that some of the technical staff sent do not also understand what they should do. That's what we saw. But most importantly, I want to raise another question that has been agitating our minds over. In Ihiara, no BVAS problem. So what went wrong on the 6th? Because during the Ihiara, we didn't, all our observers say every polling unit monitor the BVAS work. So what went wrong? We were thinking, initially, we were not sure what is going on in Anambra. But most importantly, what affected the election is mainly deployment. Mainly deployment, not BVAS. BVAS works in so many ways. It was a few issues. What actually affected people is deployment. No personnel to deploy. And also the issue of the Transport Workers Union. Those are the major issues. And we are thinking that going forward the kit, INEC should be thinking outside the box, not to be resting their hope on the transport union. They should actually go and look for buses, alternatives, like transport workers, good, what is it called? This good one body in Edo, and use them because they are busy people. They will deploy, or people like Peace Transport, waiting for these people that can be compromised. A political party can just pay the money, and they will now say, "I'm not sure I'll be safe if I go to carry your personal materials." So some of them, when they collected extra money, they still carried those personal materials.
All right.
So we need to interrogate it.
Thank you so much, Madam Modi. We'll get another comment. Then I'll come back to this side of the divide. And then, okay, let me take yet another woman. Please introduce yourself. And
good evening, everyone. My name is Chigozri Mokoro. I work under the Situation Room platform. I think we were all in Anambra and we saw what happened with regards to the functionality of BVAS. However, I must commend INEC because they were timely in certain areas that we had the challenges. You know, their technical team were timely to respond. That said, I think going forward, the way to go will be more of education, sensitization, and awareness creation. Part of what we saw in Anambra was actually ignorance. Ignorance on the part of ad hoc personnel, ignorance on the part of the citizens themselves. Just look at what happened in Anambra from the lens of what happened. Okay, if Anambrarians were not committed to ensuring that the election was peaceful, what happens? Who knows? Maybe the reverse would have been the case in the context of violence. Okay, and criminal elements taking advantage of that. And so going forward ahead of future elections, Ekiti, Oshu, 2023, there's need for us to do the right thing. So education, timely, awareness creation, timely, civil society organizations should be engaged robustly because even sitting down here, there are some things that are clearer to us as professionals, hearing from INEC and with regards to what the whole concept of e-transmission, what it entails in its entirety. So for me, I think that is clear. And then going forward, we should do the right thing. And we should do that timely so that we won't have a repeat of these complaints.
Thank you, Chigozorim. We'll come back to the other side of it. Yeah. Let me allow Mr. Okoye.
Can I say something?
Okay, quickly, ma'am.
I just want to say that, you know, the BVAS had its own problems. But Situation Room did not wait till today to start asking INEC. We were asking questions per minute per second. You know, we're asking questions. And one of the things that came back was thousands of INEC, you know, trained personnel that were supposed to go to the polling booths down tool that morning. If you were the one, what would you have done? A lot of people were deployed without prior training. They did what that election held at all in Anambra is congratulations, not just to INEC, but to all the stakeholders. One of the unique things that I saw, which is there, you know, I think it's section 48 of the present bill, the subsection 3, had to do with inclusion. And that inclusion showed us where pregnant women, elderly, and people with disability were given priority. I think that is a plus to this election. And I thought you know, it's a provision of the law, all right, but that INEC put it in their guidelines and they were able to conduct that. So I want to say congratulations. Yes, we will blame INEC where we need to blame, but when there is a human element, there is a limit to what they could have done.
Let's allow INEC. Yeah. You've just tried to allow Mr. Okoye because he's been sweating in the last minute. But Senator, let me allow Mr. Okoye just a minute. Yeah. He's been sweating under his suit. Even these places, there are a lot of air conditioning working here. But Mr. Okoye, first and foremost, has the commission realized the problems with the BVAS from Anambra election?
Well, I'm going to rephrase your question. And I'm going to start.
You can't rephrase my question, Mr. Okoye. You have to answer the question. Has the commission realized the problem that came up with the BVAS? There were problems.
Yes, there were problems. We are not running away from that. And I've been listening keenly, and I've harvested some of the very useful suggestions and useful comments and inputs that have been made. But I really think that in discussing the BVAS, we must place this election in its proper context. This election was conducted under an atmosphere of heightened insecurity. That is one. Secondly, if you recall, a lot of people asked the Independent National Electoral Commission to postpone the election. And we said we couldn't postpone the election based on the provisions of Section 178 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria that circumscribed the period for the conduct of elections. The third issue, which dovetails to some of the comments that have been made here, is that when we got to Anambra, there were a lot of voice notes made by people asking hoteliers to eject people staying in their hotels, and that if they don't eject them, that something adverse was going to happen to their facilities. Not only that, we trained ad hoc staff twice. During the first training, a lot of the ad hoc staff that we trained were very, very familiar, and they were enthusiastic about using the device. But what happened? Some parents, based on agitations, based on fear, based on anxiety, withdrew their sons and daughters from Anambra State. And if some of you went to the motor park a few days before elections, you will see that the atmosphere at the motor parks was the type of atmosphere you get when people are going for Christmas holiday. Some people were leaving the state because they were not sure of what was going to happen. Coupled with that is the fact that even the transporters themselves, we had an agreement with them and they signed individual contracts with the commission. We paid them 50% of their sign-on fees. Later they came and said, no, give us 100%. We gave them 100%. Then on election day, some of them came and said we should also pay insurance fee because they were not too sure that if they deploy their vehicles, after the elections, their vehicles will not be burnt. So when we trained the second set of ad hoc staff, we thought that it was the set we trained before that were going to be there. But some of them had already declined. Some of them had opted out. Some of them, their parents came and picked them from the place. So we had to train a new set. But even after we trained the new set, even on election day, some of them did not turn up. So we had to train some of them on the spot. On the spot, yeah. And this accounts for some of the deficits you noticed in terms of the operations of the BVAS. In some of the places, there was nothing wrong with the BVAS. The only thing was that some of the ad hoc staff could not operate it. Yeah. Secondly, when we needed to intervene with our registration area technical assistants, some of the transporters had already withdrawn their vehicles on grounds of fear. So the Federal Road Safety Commission had to give us some of their vehicles. We had to mobilize vehicles from the contiguous states in order to move around our technical staff to go and fix the problem. But what we noticed was that the major issue was that some of the devices needed software update. And it was when we did that software update, that was why we didn't have any challenge during the conduct of the software.
When did you realize there was a need for
Who is responsible for doing checking for updates?
No, just a minute. Chidoka, you will also realize that we also conducted this election under tremendous tension. First, our offices in Idemili North and in Nnewi North were burnt. Coupled with that, our state head office was burnt. 50% of the materials we had there were burnt. Our utility vehicles were burnt. Our stores were burnt. So we had to recalibrate all these things in order to proceed with the election. And you also know that there was also a reduced working period in Anambra State. So all these things combined.
So Mr. Apologies. The reason why I want apologies to cut you is you have a computer and you have a car problem. There are two different problems. The BVAS, you have logistic problem. They burnt down your, but it is not the same problem with the BVAS software update. So when did INEC realize the devices needed software update?
No, the number of devices that needed software update was really negligible. we have conducted some preliminary research and some preliminary evaluation in relation to what happened. And we found out that in almost 95% of the places that the BVAS worked and worked very well. And that in the places where it did not work, that some of them needed software update. Why it was slightly difficult to rectify them on time was because of the transport challenges we had on account of the challenges surrounding the election. But having said that, we have by-elections to conduct. We have a by-election in Jos North, Bassa Federal Constituency. We have a by-election in Cross River. We have a by-election in Ondo, and so on and so forth. We're also going to conduct some level of evaluation and then to make sure that we bring the BVAS up to date.
Because the essence of this program is to look at where they, not basically putting forth on INEC, but we wanted to help you.
Yeah.
We want our elections to work, and that's why we say improving our elections.
Exactly.
If you can give us 3 problems and what you have done to those problems since Anambra.
Well, one of the things we have done is that we have made a determination that every staff of the commission must be trained on the use of the BVAS. So that when there's an issue, we can have a pool of interventionists, a pool of people who can intervene. Secondly, we have made a determination that we also need to look at our relationship with the National Union of Road Transport Workers because we had very serious challenges in relation to their adhering to contractual obligations during the election. But more importantly, the political parties must also assist in lowering the tension all over the country because the fact that we even conducted the supplementary elections in Ihiala was a credit to the commission because a day before that particular election, we sent a team of our ICT staff and a team of our electoral operations staff. And they were ambushed somewhere in Iseke. One of our staff is still battling for his life in one of the teaching hospitals. We had to send special forces to go and rescue them. So when some of the people who were supposed to act as supervisory presiding officers learned about this, some of them did not want to deploy. So I think that we did what we needed to do within the context, within the environment we were operating.
All right, because
but all these things, all these challenges, we are still going to review it because we have a review meeting with all our presiding officers, collation officers, and so on, to look at the whole gamut of the Anambra elections and see in what ways we can improve.
All right.
We continue to improve.
Just have at the back of your mind that anytime you are going for elections, we will call you to the town meeting like this, and you will explain yourself.
Yes.
Senator Ume.
Yes, let me just quickly add that the Honorable Commissioner doesn't need to sweat. INEC did a good job in Anambra State.
Thank you.
And the outcome of that election, you could see, got the approval rating from the citizens of the state. Again, on that date, that election was also conducted under very peaceful atmosphere. There was no harassment. No, but it's true. The security operatives did their jobs professionally. Nobody will take it away. Observers are here. That BVAS we are talking about, let nobody deceive anybody. Part of the serious challenges we had that day was signal, because the whole 326 registration areas had ICT technical support staff. In my own registration area, the technician went around the 19 polling units trying to do what you just said, updating the BVAS with a software she received. And any place she went, the machine started working, you know. And sometimes to update it takes time because you need signal to update the BVAS itself. So trying to make a BVAS machine to function optimally, she may stay there 25, 30 minutes to be able to update it with the new software. So the problem was essentially network. And if they factor it into their plans for the subsequent elections, you will see, like the man from Lagos said, there's a mapping of network coverage using different network providers. There are places, they must, where they have their their masts and signal boxes will have a wider coverage. If it is a Etisalat, you configure BVAS in that area with a Etisalat. Where Airtel is very effective, you use Airtel. Where MTN is very effective, use MTN. Those things will function without
So because
problem.
we're getting to the home stretch now, but I'd like
So
two more
please,
comments.
you passed.
Yeah.
Don't worry yourself.
I like two more comments from the audience. Okay, three. So what we'll do is I like to make it very sharp and precise so that we can. Let me start with you.
Okay. Yeah. Sheon, thank you very much. Celestine Okudele Odo, ActionAid Nigeria. Thank you very much, Festus. You know, improving on the election, for me, I think it goes beyond Anambra, but repositioning for 2023. And if you look at it, logistics remain at the heart of INEC work with regards to election, you know, and logistics continue to pose challenges, you know, all the elections. So how do we look at that logistic architecture? Is this something that requires unbundling? Yeah, starting on time and look at different segments, you know, of the logistics involvement. When you talk about transportation, I think Anambra is not the first time we are having issues with regards to road transport workers. I think Kogi 2019 was still an issue. Yeah, when you even going back to Akura and all that, they were still an issue. So I think it's time to really look at it, starting on time and draw up, you know, really roadmap on dealing with logistics.
Because I'm really now pressed for time. Okay, so let me take you, the man here. Please, a quick one.
All right, thank you. My name is Michael Agada. I'm a senior program officer, Yaga Africa. So my major takeaway from the commissioner's comment is the fact that it seems like the issues with the BVAS is more of a human error than a mechanical error. So I would like to remind us on the commission that Nigerians are watching, because INEC could be conducting future election under a different circumstances from Anambra. So we hope to see a situation where we will have greater functionality of the BVAS in that context. And again, when you put in context the turnout of voters in Anambra in relation to the functionality of the BVAS, it tells you how the dysfunctional situation we had with the visas slowed down the electoral process at some point. And when you look at the turnout from Anambra at less than 11%, and that such that INEC had to even extend the voting time at some polling unit. So it comes to tell you that should we have had, let's say, a 60% turnout, does that mean that we would have been conducting the election in 3 days?
You have actually eaten. I have only one more comment to take, and I'll allow the woman who has not spoken today before we now get the final word. And I just have about 60 seconds or so to wrap up.
Thank you, Shaun. My name is Mimido Achakpa. I'm a member of the Civil Society Situation Room. And having listened to all the conversations and comments from the panelists and the audience, my comment would be on the transportation arrangement. I know that in the past, INEC had vehicles that they would use in deploying their staff as well as materials. I remember, I think 2011 elections or 2003 elections, there were these big vehicles, Tata, and smaller vehicles as well. Wouldn't INEC consider, getting such vehicles for such operations?
All right. Yeah, we really need to go now, and our time is up. But I don't know how we're going to do it, but we have just 50 seconds for us to get our final thought. So and I'll start with you.
5 seconds.
I don't know if we can do it in 10 seconds. Mr. Chidoka, beginning with you.
Well,
we need to speed things up.
INEC has tried, needs to improve. Election of 2023 is a very important election. It will now be 176,000 polling units. It will now be dealing with about 30 million people. So the excuses cannot wash in 2023. So improvements needs to be done, a proper review done, improvements done. And over the issue of logistics, a lot has happened in Nigeria. A lot of companies are on ground. that you can actually hire and have contractual agreements with them to perform this role.
Senator Ome,
yes,
even 10 seconds if you
yes,
can.
I would like INEC to keep its the determination it exhibited in Anambra, in managing the election, to be transparent. They didn't sustain it because the recruitment of ad hoc staff, particularly critical ad hoc personnel, collation officers, had been the problem over the years. But in this instance, you could see the commissioner was there on ground. The collation officers from University of Calabar were very dispassionate, except for one renegade that we battled in Orumba North.
If you can do 10 seconds, I'll be happy.
Security was very good, so I want to commend the Nigerian Police Force and also all the other security agencies. And for the transport owner, I will say the National Union of Road Transport Workers needs to be engaged, and the Nigerian Labour Congress. Maybe we can have a more solid foundation. Let them be seen as stakeholders, in all of the states of the Federation.
You're fast talker, Mr. Okoye.
And thank you to all of you for the short time.
Thank you so much.
Well, we will continue to improve democracy through the use of technology in the electoral process. And we'll continue to be transparent, and we'll continue to be open to Nigerians. And anytime we have difficulty, we will throw it to Nigerians, and then we get critical suggestions.
Or else we'll be summoned again to the town meeting. It's a good one,
finally,
isn't it?
Let the president sign the electoral bill.
Absolutely. We are hoping and anticipating. Yes. Come and sincerely thank everyone who has been able to make it today. My audience member, thank you so much. And the panelists also, thank you so much indeed for coming. And you Nigerians, wherever you may be watching, you're a real hero of our democracy. You need to come out, you need to exercise your franchise, because that is your power. And that is the end of this special town hall on elections and how to improve our electoral process. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching. On behalf of Channels Television, I must sincerely thank the Civil Society Situation Room with support from UK Aid. Thank you, everyone, for watching. I'm Chion Kimbalwe. Bye-bye.